Hello, Dave.
Hello, Matt. How's it going?
All right. What's new with you?
Still no Humble Bundle check.
I'll send a nasty email, I guess.
Don't send a nasty email, but if you can ask him, if he doesn't, if he finds out that the check hasn't gone out, can we switch to FedEx? And I'll give you the Aardvark Anaheim FedEx number right now.
Okay.
So it'll work with the street address, which presumably he already had because you contacted him specifically to give it to him.
Yes.
Yeah. The FedEx number is 11699078
11699078
That's the one.
All right.
And we'll see what happens with this. I told you this one had test written all over.
Well, that's, when I was getting ready to leave and was, we still haven't gotten the check yet. I'm like, let me just make sure they have the right address. And it's, no, we don't. It's like, guys, we're going to sit on the check for how long before you finally said, hey, what's going on?
I do find that curious. I mean, I try. Let's not try and turn everything into a conspiracy theory, but at what point do you go? Excuse me, we've got a check for somewhere around $80,000 sitting here. Should this go to somebody? And where should it go to them? And maybe we should contact them and find that information out if we don't have it.
Well, that's it's one of those questions where you go, wait, what?
How does that go again? Say again, Houston. Okay, you started off here.
Well, it's that time of the month.
It is. It is indeed that time again.
So it's my turn to remember Jeff, and I got a couple of them, because I actually had, I can't say it was a Jeff experience, it was the memory of Jeff popped up on my vacation.
Oh, it did?
And so we flew to Florida, then we got rental cars and drove to Key West, because it was part of the planning when we were planning the trip was, we'll have a day where we're sitting around doing nothing. We can get a bus trip, then the bus will take us to Key West, and we spend the day, and then they bring us back. And then when my in-laws were coming with us, they have a 1.5-year-old, and he's not going to ride on a bus.
Oh, okay. That's a given, is it?
Well, he kind of has stranger dangers, and only a real jerk puts a 1.5-year-old on a bus full of strangers and goes, well, it'll be fine. So we rented cars and we drove down there, and on the itinerary of things that I wanted to do and Paula wanted to do was go to the Hemingway house and see the polydactyl cats and take the tour. And I'm going, she wants to see the cats, and I'm like, I want to do weird stuff with a Ham Ernest Way coaster.
Okay.
So I'll send up the photos. It's not quite like the Hemingway house in Cuba, and one of the things that on the tour that they explained was Pauline was his first wife. Her uncle bought them this house,
right,
and gave it to him as a wedding present. And when Ernest moved on from Pauline, she got to keep the house, and the boys inherited it when she died, and they were, what are we going to do with Mom and Dad's house? And it's, we'll sell it. And they sold it to somebody who turned it into a tourist attraction, and the sons are pissed.
You're kidding. I didn't know that part.
Patrick is 96 years old, and he is still fighting with the people that bought his parents' house.
Probably for a song.
Yeah, it was one of those, they made money on the deal, but they didn't make as much money as they could have if they had kept the house and turned it into their own tourist attraction.
Right.
You know,
Right.
as we're taking the tour, I'm going, wait a minute, this guy's 96, and he's begrudging the people that are doing a tour of his dad and mom's house because, you know, he grew up in this house. Like, you know, his childhood bedroom is gone. They've turned it into a museum to his father. And yes, I could see being upset about that, but at the same time, you're 96. At a certain point, the words "let it go" come out. So we
Yes.
went to the house.
I was just going to say.
Well, we went to the house, and one of the things that I love about it is, you know, we got into Fort Lauderdale, or we got into Key West, and we checked into our motel, and the kids are like, we're going to the pool, and my in-laws were like, yeah, we're just going to hang out, and Paula and I are like, we're going to the Hemingway house. Like, this, you know, they close in an hour, it's 3 blocks away, we're going there. And, of course, we're using the internet to find the place instead of a map, so instead of going 3 blocks, we went 7 blocks in the heat. And we got there, and, like, they close in 45 minutes, and it's, are you guys still open? And the guy is like, yeah. And very, very laid back 20-something. You can tell that his family owns this house or runs the museum because he does not give a crap at all. And it's like, you know, okay, he pays us and gives us the tickets, and you know, Paul is trying to strike up a conversation. He very much, I don't care. Give me your money. Go away.
Right.
And
right.
we take the tour, and before the tour started, we're out, sitting on the porch, and one of the things they tell you is you can pet the cats, but don't pick them up. And I'm going, all right. I mean, it's a cat. The cat's going to do what the cat's going to do. Well, we're sitting out on the porch, and there's a cat, and we're petting the cat, and the cat jumps up on my lap, and I'm like, you know, people walk by, I'm like, I didn't touch him. He did this of his own volition. Like, hands up, I'm not guilty. And
yeah, you could see that one coming.
And so then we go into the house because the tour is going to start, but we figure, okay, we'll get into the room where the tour starts, and that way we don't have to worry about it. And on the wall is a picture of Ernest and Pauline, and Ernest and his second wife, and Ernest and his third wife, and Ernest and Mary. And I'm like, immediately I'm like, oh, there's a little stand here, and I put the coaster on it and take a picture, and I'm like, there we go. You know, the beginning of let's do weird things with a coaster.
There you go. Have Ernest way as we knew it.
And we go through the tour, and the guys, you know, telling us, you know, this is what happened, and there's in one of the rooms there's a shrine to his first trip to Africa with his first wife, and I'm going, okay, take a picture of this because I'll send it up to Dave, and he'll be like, I finished the book 20 years ago, Matt. I don't care.
No, I wouldn't say that, but keep going.
But so, you know, we go through the house, and one of the things they do at this house is they do weddings. And I saw on a map that for $400 you could book the house for a wedding. I'm like, that's really cheap, but at the same time, you know, I'm sure there's other factors. And I told Paul this. I'm like, yeah, it's only $400, and she looked it up online. She's like, no, Matt, it's $10,000. I'm like, well, the map says it's only $400. $400 probably gets you into the building, and then after that, they're like, oh, you want to have a wedding? Well, now you got to start, you know. But they were setting up for a wedding, and they were going to have a wedding right after they closed. So we're there at the end of the day, and we get done with the tour. And one of the things I love about it, so the house has a veranda around the second floor, and Ernest set it up so that he walked out of his bedroom, and his writing studio was in the upstairs of the garage, and he had a bridge built that went from the veranda to the garage, so you could just get up and walk across it. And I'm like, oh, that's really neat. And we get out on the veranda, and there's this giant tree. and you can't see the garage. And I'm like, what? And on the tour, the guy goes, yeah, he had a bridge, but it got knocked down by a hurricane 30 years ago, and it hasn't been replaced. I'm going, oh, it's one of those museums. This is the house that he lived in, and he wrote, and they went through which of the books he wrote in this house, and it's so amazing. And the bridge got knocked down, but we're not going to put it back up. And I'm thinking, that's because there's hurricanes more than once.
Right.
So we get done with the tour, and you can go up the stairs into the writing studio, and it's one set of stairs up, one set of stairs down. I'm like, well, we got a few minutes. I'm going to go up and take a look at it, because the tour didn't show it to us. And I get up there, and it's caged. You can see it, but it's big iron bars. You can't actually go into the room. And I'm like, oh, so the odds of getting the coaster on his desk by his typewriter, kind of like Eddie did with a copy of Form and Void down in Cuba, that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
So I have a picture of me holding the coaster in the bars with the desk in the background.
Okay, well, hey, close enough. How far away was the desk?
7 feet.
That's good.
I thought of throwing it in, and then I was in the gift shop, and I was going to ask, hey, do you guys carry Form and Void by Dave Sim? It's about Hemingway, sorta. And I'm like, no, they're closing, they don't care.
That's right.
But it was funny because the guy that sold us the tickets, and the guy that, and we bought the tickets, walked up to the front of the house, and they took the tickets, and there was a guy and a girl there, and another guy, and the guy that sold the ticket, and the girl, and the one guy, all looked related. Like, they were definitely siblings. And I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then we got to the gift shop, and there was another girl that kind of maybe was a cousin, and an older woman who was definitely related. I'm like, it's a family-run business, it's just not Ernest's family.
Right.
So, it was kind of Jeff-ish of, we're in Key West, and we decided to go out for dinner to the very first Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville, which he opened in Key West. And I'm going, and so we're going out to eat, just Paula, her sister, her sister's husband, and me, just the four of us. We left all the kids with Grandma at the motel. And we park, and we ended up around the corner from Mile Zero on US 1, which goes from Key West all the way up to the Canadian border in Maine.
Wow.
And Paula wants a picture at Mile Zero, and I'm like, yeah, okay. So she gets her picture, I get my picture, and as we were walking up, I realized, because Mile Zero is 2 blocks from the ocean. It actually is a mile from the edge of the island. And right behind the mile marker, which, it's a nice touristy thing that you can take your picture, there's a tree, and behind the tree is an Adopt a Highway sign, and Mile Zero is adopted by the Parrot Heads of Key West. And I'm going, that's a joke, right? Because there actually isn't a mile there. Like, they don't actually clean it. They did it as a joke thing. And Paul's going, no, I'm pretty sure they're philanthropic organization that they would volunteer and do stuff. And I'm going, but it's not a real mile. I think that's the joke. So I got my picture next to the Parrot Head sign, and I was thinking of Jeff immediately, going, if Jeff were here, which what I understood towards the end was that was Jeff's retirement plan, was he was going down to Florida to live on the beach. That was what he had talked about doing before he got sick. And so then we go into the first Margaritaville, and the whole time I'm going, man, if Jeff were here, Jeff would be here. Like, I can see that this would be where Jeff went, oh yeah, I'm retiring to Florida, and what he would mean is, no, I'm going to Margaritaville, and I'm going to live across the street from Margaritaville.
I spent most of my time there.
Yes, and it was one of, and had a great time on the trip, but it was very much a, that night I was, like, I'm sitting there, and the other one is we walked in, and they put us at a table for 4 right in front of a stage where a guy was tuning a guitar and another guy was tuning his guitar, and I'm like, oh, there's a band tonight. And they put us right in front of it. And so Paul and I are sitting next to each other, and her sister and her husband are sitting across from us, and they have their backs to the stage, and the guy's like 3 feet behind them. And I'm going, well, this will be fun. And sure enough, they started playing music. It's like, yeah, that's it. This is all we're doing for the rest of the night is we're going to eat our food and drink our drinks with a band right there.
Yeah. Just in case you didn't happen to bring your own tunage with you, we've got you covered.
Well, they had a big screen, and they were showing vintage concert footage on it. And I'm going, okay, that makes sense. It's Margaritaville. It's Jimmy Buffett, at concert. And okay, now we're going to pause this, and we're going to have these guys play music. And I'm like, okay, and is it a Jimmy Buffett cover band? No. Is this a guy that played with Jimmy one time? No. Is it just two guys that happen to wander in and know the owner? Yeah, probably.
Mystery upon mystery upon mystery.
It was, like I said, it was one. I could not stop thinking about Jeff the entire night, because I'm like, if Jeff were here, Jeff would be here. Like, I probably would have walked into this place, and there would have been Jeff at the end of the bar going, oh, hey, I've been waiting for you. And I'd be like, Jeff, you've been here for 6 years.
Yeah. He owned a property in Florida, like part of a house that another guy owned that he bought a share of. I don't know the geographic location of it, but it was definitely in Florida, and the idea was to spend, if not the majority of his time there, a good chunk of it. I think in total he maybe got there like 2 or 3 times for a week or so.
That's, it's one of those things where I go, if Jeff were alive, what would he be doing? And it's like, I know what he'd be doing. He'd be in Margaritaville.
And it's entirely theoretical, because Jeff definitely wouldn't have, if he was doing any curtailment of his alcohol intake, that wasn't going to happen living across the street from Margaritaville.
Yeah.
Okay, then before anything else, yes, even that, we answer Eli's question. Good catch on that one there, Matthew. Since he asked last month, and we skipped him. It was sitting right here next to the phone, and I didn't even see it until the next day when I was cleaning up all of the paperwork from Glee's Hold. Oh, the shame! Oh, the anguish! Oh, the indignity! We have one job: answering questions from guys like Eli. We can't even do that. Oh, will he ever forgive us? Who knows? Anyway, was this addressed to Dave, or did it actually started Hey Tim?
It says Hey Tim.
So he was addressing it to Tim Weber, I guess, is the idea, is it?
Well, that's my optimistic hope.
Right. And it was wherever he had the contact reference, it was dated back to when Tim was doing your job.
Or
go ahead.
Or he misspelled Sim.
Could be. Hey Tim, my name is Eli. I'm a new fan who just picked up a couple of issues featuring your little aardvark. So it could be Sim, because Tim didn't have a little aardvark. I had the little aardvark. I just wanted to ask a dumb, nerdy question. Are Cerebus' appearances in Spawn and TMNT considered canon to the main series? I know it doesn't really make a difference because they are just fun crossovers. But I always like it when crossovers are connected with some sort of continuity behind them. Like the original Transformers #3 or DC Comics Presents #47. The latter being a little more debatable. If you can get back to me, that would be great. Thanks for reading. Do you know the reference to Transformers #3 and DC Comics 47? Just off the top of your head. You're not going to be graded on it.
Transformers #3 may have had a cameo by Spider-Man.
Okay.
Like Spider-Man in his black 1984 suit. I believe that... I know he had a crossover with the Transformers, but I can't remember if it was in Transformers or if it was its own one-shot. But
You'll have time before this goes up to find that, so that's probably what everybody's looking at right now.
And DC Comics 47 might be the first He-Man comic that DC did, where Superman meets He-Man.
Aha! Okay. All right. Okay. You covered the information. Anyway, TMNT number 8 takes place in 1406. And you went right to the panel in the story where it's, okay, now I know today is Tuesday, but what year is it? I don't think we record that yet. And that was actually a story point that Kevin Eastman had in there that just went completely over my head at the time, which is why I added the footnote in my lettering. Yes, we do. It's 1406, and then signed it Interim. And as you point out, which according to Alex McKay's Cerebus timeline, and congratulations, Alex, if you're still listening, or if you're still part of this whole operation, that I don't think there's been any modification necessary to Alex McKay's Cerebus timeline since he did it. Am I misremembering that?
If I remember right, it was at one point you got a copy of it, and there were things that were wrong on it, but it was the only reason they're wrong is because you knew the answer and never told anybody.
Right, and it wasn't in the book or anything like that. So it was.
Yeah.
If this is the extent of your omniscience, your Alex McKay omniscience, there are limitations to that. Which, according to Alex McKay's Cerebus timeline, means Cerebus is 21 years old. Cerebus number 1 takes place in 1410. Spawn 10 features, quote, not Cerebus, unquote, in the same vein as, quote, not Spawn, unquote. Plus, Cerebus smokes, Cerebus in quotation marks, smokes and knows Peter's Place and Kitchener, just as Spawn, in quotation marks, lives with Todd's wife and kid in Todd's house. Obviously, quote, Cerebus, unquote, is a stand-in for Dave, as, quote, Spawn, unquote, is a stand-in for Todd. But here Dave tells you why I'm wrong, with lowercase w, wrong, in quotation marks, and or capital W, wrong. Dave? Thanks, Matt. Let me take it from there. As soon as I find... This was one of those ones where I went, I'm going to have to type this out because I'm just going to start falling all over myself trying to explain this if I don't get it coherent. So this is what I spent most of my afternoon typing. The distinction I would make would be between canon. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 8 takes place within the context of the 6,000-page Cerebus graphic novel. As Matt explained, the contextual year, 1406, when the fictional character Cerebus was 21 years old. You can narrow that down even further to which two Cerebus stories does the story take place between, or between what panels, or what pages, or pages of Cerebus story does the story occur. As you point out, Cerebus number 1 is 1410, so this is actually pre-Cerebus number 1, but there's also a number of pre-Cerebus number 1 stories from Cerebus Jam and whatnot that if you want to get really granular about this, then you would have to look at it and go, oh, okay, This is TMNT number 8, and it takes place between such and such pre-number 1 story and such other pre-number 1 story. That's just the lead-in. So the distinction is between canon and macro canon, or super reality, which is where Spawn 10 occurs. This is a fusion of creator Dave Sim and Dave Sim's character Cerebus, having elements of both and fixed within real-world chronology. Dave Sim smokes. He's hanging around with Mike Cave at Peter's place. Compelled inference, therefore, is that it's the publication year of 1993 or the year it was written, 1992. You can narrow it down even further than that, extrapolating from Cerebus saying on the second last page on the phone with Mike Cave, I'll be in after the Leaf game. They're at home to Detroit, unquote. You can narrow it down even further than that. As Cerebus and Spawn are walking across Scott Street from Market Street walking across Scott Street from Market Square to Peter's place in Kitchener on King Street, there's a covering of snow on the ground. What Saturday night, and I put in parentheses an S, it's either a Saturday night or Saturday nights, in the 1992-1993 season, during the winter months, were the Toronto Maple Leafs at home to the Detroit Red Wings, and was there snow on the ground in Kitchener? I didn't consciously reference that. It was a throwaway line. But if your specific interest is in canon and the different aspects of canon versus macro canon or super reality, there is probably a likely Saturday night candidate, or maybe two. Or more, if I'm remembering correctly, that the Leafs beat the Detroit Red Wings in one of the playoff rounds in 1993. That's how far back this goes. So I think that would be too late in the season to have snow on the ground. Far from a nerdy question, Eli, you're asking a comic art metaphysics-based question of the guy who has ended up a pioneer comic art metaphysics theorist. 30 plus years later, with my experiences of comic art metaphysics theorizing having hatched out, a bunch of them anyway, there's probably more up ahead, I can tell you that I believe that the relevant metaphysics are that Cerebus in Spawn 10 exists somewhere between his two-dimensional self at the time. Mothers and Daughters was the Cerebus graphic novel that was being created and serialized in 1992 and 1993, and my three-dimensional self at the time. Presumably resonating in turn somewhere between my three-dimensional 1992 or 1993 self and a macrocosmic entity between myself and God, which would increase the odds that although my impression was and is that it was a throwaway line, my proximity to that macrocosmic entity meant it was anything but. In my conscious mind, writing Spawn 10, I'm thinking, just pick an NHL team name at random. I think I'm arbitrarily selecting the Detroit Red Wings, but it's very likely that the Detroit Red Wings were chosen for me. Why? Well, I don't know. If someone wants to take the trouble to triangulate the meteorological reality, snow on the ground in Kitchener, and the sports schedule reality, the Leafs at home to the Detroit Red Wings, and let me know what the likely possibilities are, I can tell you what those possibilities mean to me. But there are better uses for your time, like prayer, fasting, reading scripture aloud, giving money to the poor, etc. I was a 100% atheist at the time, so any resonances that there are there, I would imagine, are just side issues to, quote, Dave Sim needs to make better choices, unquote, which 3 years later, starting to read the Bible, I would, in my opinion, begin to do. The last annotation I had, it was like, okay, that's enough typing for today, was regarding awareness. They're not Cerebus's awareness in Spawn 10 and not Spawn's awareness in Spawn 10 are two different kinds of awareness. Spawn is completely at odds with the environment, can't really believe that this is his. So consequently, he's disconnected from his creator. Whereas Cerebus, we are aware that he not only doesn't he find any of the things that he's telling not Spawn and showing not Spawn surprising or in any way disorienting, he's very, very comfortable with it. So he's actually fused more not only to me, but also to Todd McFarlane, because he knows these issues inside and out and is also comfortable in his own reality, which is very close to mine because it involves hanging around with Mike Cave and going to Peter's place and watching hockey games. But as with any kind of awareness, awareness is a separate thing. Awareness issues from God, I would maintain, and is always connected to God. So it's a conundrum that if you are God, you don't know actual awareness, just your own. Now, would you, having listened to all that, would you say that I'm saying that you're wrong, lowercase w, wrong in quotation marks, or capital W wrong?
Well, everybody's got to submit their answers in writing.
See, that touches on awareness as well. You asked me the question, and it's like, I don't know. That's somewhere between lowercase a awareness and capital A awareness, which is reserved for God, and neither of us are going to know that one.
Right. I mean, that's... There was the second fax that you sent me with Eli's question where you had the note about yes, everything is in continuity, including the Ninja High School crossover, and I left that one out because you didn't ask about it, but you know, that one taking place between two panels of Service number 1 is, I'm waiting for that to come out because that's going to be funny.
I hope so. I think it's gonna. I'm hoping it'll be as funny as it is thought-provoking, and as thought-provoking as it is funny. Just looking at the Turtles panel here again with my footnote, you don't want to be calling yourself Tara. I didn't know that at the time, but you don't want to be doing that, Dave Sim. Trust me. Next up on the hit parade, friend to the blog, Steve Peters, asks /says/begs/pleads. Hello, Matt and Dave. The Heritage auction did not yield the results we hoped for. I think a couple of people actually work for Heritage. Back to the Kickstarter. That would sound like people at Heritage auctions as I know them. But that's about it. The campaign has stalled at less than 50% funded. Could we do a strategic edit here and have you check on your laptop? How is Steve doing here in real time in terms of what he's got in hand and how far that is from his goal?
Last I knew, he was at 45% funded. Come on, work with me.
Yeah, it's like I think it's more helpful if we can get dollar amounts attached to this. We're going like, okay, we've still got another week to make, if it's another $28,000, sorry, Steve, I don't think you're going to make it. But if it's, he was asking for 1,000 and he's got 450. That's more doable. And how close is it to one or the other?
Let's see. Where is it? There it is.
Anybody who's listening to this who has considered doing a Kickstarter but has never done a Kickstarter before, word to the wise, always lowball the amount that you're looking for.
So,
go ahead.
So he's looking for 3,000 and he's at 1,378.
Okay, at the moment.
At the moment. But he also only has 31 backers.
Right. Okay. So if you could give a shout out to the Sparky Cosmic Delinquent campaign ending October 10th, I'd much appreciate it. Quote, half angel, half devil, teenage Sparky has the attitude of Bart Simpson and the powers of the Silver Surfer. What could go wrong? Unquote. Definitely a rhetorical question, but we'll leave it up to you nice folks to decide whether that's a lowercase r in quotation marks or a capital R. With a variant cover and an 8-page collaboration with Dave Sim. I think one of the things Steve might be looking at is if this is as far as he gets and he can't get up to the 3,000, he might just have to run the Kickstarter over again. I understand that isn't a problem with Kickstarter, where they understand, okay, too optimistic on the amount I was looking for. Let's this time say, contact all 31 people, all 31 of my backers, and say, okay, you're not on the hook for anything this time, but next time, can you please pledge the same amount that you've already pledged? But I promise this time I'll say that I'm only looking for 750. And then that way Steve will actually get the money. Before we get, I was going to go on to the next part of Steve's question. But I'm going to skip down to Matt says, I promised Steve I'd do a Sparky Cosmic Delinquent pinup. So that's on my agenda for the weekend. Any suggestions, Dave? And the only thing that I could think of, and this hinges on, I'm pretty sure that Sparkybus, the Sparkybus variant cover for Sparky Cosmic Delinquent, it's comic book format. It's not the digest size that Steve uses as well, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay. See, because my suggestion was going to be, if it's a comic book that he's doing this time, then what I would offer is I will do an original Sparkybus backing board, so that when you get your Sparkybus #1 variant cover or your regular edition of Sparky Cosmic Delinquent, then I will draw on that backing board a picture of Sparkybus for you and put an off-White House sticker on it, and that way you have a piece of original artwork and the comic book together. And I would leave it up to Steve to decide, okay, how much are you charging for that? And it's like, I won't take any of the money. It will all go to Awakening Comics. And there's a math problem that I don't envy you, Steve, because it would be, okay, let's say that Dave Sim can raise another $700 in the next week by offering this piece of original artwork. If you're offering it for $100, then you got to sell 7 of them, and if you're offering it for $200, you got to sell 3 or 4 of them. I don't really have an answer to that, but in the line of duty, that's what I'm willing to do on my side. But decision making on price, no, I can only work on availability. All the people have to do is say swordfish in their backer report and say, yes, I want this, and this is what I've signed up for, and I will make sure that I get it done toot sweet at the conclusion of your Kickstarter, because it's a backing board. A backing board is a backing board is a backing board.
I looked, and the issue is going to be his manga size that he has been doing.
Okay, so all of that is out the window. Let me just express how inadvisable, Steve, I think it was for you to do a title called Sparky Cosmic Delinquent, and to essentially come up with a cosmological situation somewhere between Bart Simpson and the Silver Surfer. You want to talk about asking for trouble. That strikes me as asking for trouble.
Well, I'm just... The sketch I was going to do for I have vague ideas, but I didn't have anything concrete. And one of the things I was thinking of doing is, because he said Bart Simpson is a variation of the early, I think it's the first season of The Simpsons, where Bart cheats on the intelligence test and becomes a genius. But before that, he gets caught spray painting Skinner's face on the side of the school with the word balloon, "I am a wiener."
Okay.
And I was thinking of doing Sparky doing a variation of that, and I just couldn't think of who he would be making, spray painting. I was thinking Cerebus, and I'm like, well, yeah, I could do that. And then I'm going, well, and it's I very much kind of want to lean into the, he's a delinquent. But then, of course, now that I think about it, one of Bart Simpson's original catchphrases was that he was Bart Simpson underachiever. So if this campaign doesn't make it all the way, well, you did say Bart.
Right. And it is also interesting that because this is metaphysically a halfway between Bart Simpson and Silver Surfer. You might have sown your own Kickstarter with the seeds of its destruction. Going, we'll give you $1,300 worth of Bart Simpson, but there's no way we're giving you $1,700 worth of Silver Surfer.
I mean,
does that sound logical to you?
Well, he might pull it off. It could be that no one knows about it type thing, because he launches a Kickstarter and it's Dave Sim adjacent, so of course I'm going to talk about it, and then I go on vacation for a week.
Right. Like, you want to talk about sown with the seeds of your own destruction. Like everything else right now, this seemed to have test written all over it. Let's say if you can get back to me, you, Matt, by fax when we've got 24 hours to go, and let me know how short Steve is of the $3,000 goal, and I'll try to come up with something that can do the whole works in one lump, or possibly half the whole works that's still remaining in one lump, and I'll supply the other half, or Aardvark Vanaheim will supply the other half. No, I'll supply the other half. I'll flag it for the accountant that this is a personal draw, but this is money going to a Kickstarter, and depending on what that turns out to be, it's like, well, the closer you can get to the 3,000 before the last 24 hours, the more likely it is that I can come up with something that will automatically get the remaining amount. I'm not going to go as far as saying you can have the original artwork to the cover of Cerebus #1. It's like that. No, that's overdoing it. That's ostentatious for the sake of just bringing in another 700 or 800 for Steve Peters. But I'll try to find something where it's like there's got to be at least 5 Cerebus fans with deep pockets who, when they look at what I'm offering on behalf of Steve Peters in the last 24 hours, are going to go completely involuntarily, ooh.
I mean, if we want to go after Spatula's checkbook, we get page 11 from issue 11, because it's 11s, and he'll go, oh, I gotta have it, and I'll be like, you really shouldn't have such an obvious tell, Larry.
That's a good point. Or Jennifer with number 15. Look, it's got number 15 on it. I mean, that's just cruel, but we're going to have to balance cruelty with the needs of Steve Peters and Awakening Comics, and to the best of our ability. Getting back to the rest of Steve's comments, I don't think I mentioned how much I enjoyed your brushwork on the variant cover. It looks like you had a lot of fun with it. I did, just wailing on it so that I could try to learn to do that on Strange Death of Alex Raymond. The brushwork looks really spectacular when you blow it up, and I thought it would make a great background for the next Sparky Bus collaboration. And then James Bandolero Smith handed in a Sparky drawing with a very perfunctory background and told me I could put in a different background if I wanted. So I decided not to be stingy and put some of your brushwork behind it. James immediately wrote to you, thanking you for the collaboration. And I said, I haven't told him yet. He's not going to have any idea what you're talking about. Ha ha. And yeah, definitely when that came in, that's always an unhappy moment at the Off-White House. Oh gosh, it's a grandpa moment. I have no idea what he's talking about, but I probably signed off on it and already did it. Gum, gum, gum. P.S. I have added original art awards to hopefully help revive the campaign. I'm drawing single comic book panels and sketch covers. I'd be happy to recreate scenes or covers from Cerebus using Sparky in place of Cerebus, as I've already done several times in the past. So there we're gonna leave it sit and say this is as close as we can get to solving Steve's problem here on October 3rd, which might be less of a problem by the time you're listening to this on October 5th. And we're bound to determine it's not going to be a problem by the end of business day, October 1st, with October 2nd and October 3rd still to go. So check in at a moment of Cerebus to find out, okay, what is it that Dave's offering, and what is it that everybody else is offering to help Steve over the goal line. Then suddenly, without warning, Dion Turner gets an answer to a question he asked and I forgot about because I'm, quote, busy, unquote. I'd apologize to TV, but that would imply I made a mistake. Well, there's always the fallback, mistakes were made. And you can do that without any harm to your personal busyness. Hey, Matt, question for Dave. Would he do the tone when each page was finished with the inks, or was it one of those jobs that you'd put off until all the pages were done for that month? Possibly more efficient to do it that way, but maybe more daunting having 20 pages to do at once. Yes, definitely. Gerhard and I were both on the same page when it came to that. There was really nothing that we were going to do all 20 pages of at the end of the month. So if I was toning, if I had a specific effect that I wanted to do with tone, and it was just on Cerebus, I would do it before Gerhard got the page. Most of the time, Gerhard would be doing the toning, but as I recall, and Gerhard could maybe correct this if I'm wrong, Gerhard went page by page. If he got a page done, he put the tone on it, and then went on to doing the backgrounds on the next page. Wait a minute, I got these pages over. No, I don't. And then you say, and then we get to this month's questions. MJ Sewell of the Mike Sewells asks, and early bird again, 9924. Hi, you manly Matt. Surely you've noticed I've ignored all your Shirley jokes. Nyak, nyak, nyak. And the ever maple-leafed Dave Sim. In Comics Interview number 107, 1992, interviewed by Steve Bissett, you say you rarely liked the Cerebus covers at the time, especially if you did it, commenting often, Gerhard better save this one. Question for Dave, do you still believe this? Yes, definitely. Have you reevaluated your own cover work as you browse through the beautiful IDW cover collection? Not appreciably. There are maybe some that I'm not as unhappy with, but that's still worlds away from being happy with it. Do you have a favorite Cerebus cover, or at least a top 3? And I didn't go to the IDW book, but I did go to the David Banks Cerebus cover book, which is the off-White House reference go-to volume for Cerebus covers, and which might be something downscaled that could be done at a future time. And went through all 300 covers and haven't changed my mind on this one. My favorite Cerebus cover is number 167, which is Gerhard's cover of the entry into the upper city of Est. And I remember talking with Gerhard about it and saying, okay, you've done the roadway that circles the outcropping all the way up to the upper city, and sometimes there's buildings, and sometimes there's more buildings. Sometimes there's just one small building. Sometimes there's practically a small village. So we already know those. What we don't have is a stately entrance, which is what you would have for the entryway into the upper city, nor do we have an analogy in our world of what would that look like well, we don't have, the giant stump that is ES anywhere in our society, and we don't have a roadway leading up to it. So you're going to have to decide, okay, mentally picturing the ornate entry to a capital city at the time, a Renaissance location, and picturing that stuck on the side of a mountain with a road leading up to it. What does that look like? And he, as far as I'm concerned, that was knocked it out of the ballpark, and they're still looking for it outside the stadium cover. So anytime somebody says favorite Cerebus cover, default mental setting goes right to 167. Other favorite cover, 191, the Jupiter cover, the half cover. Another one where knocking it out of the ballpark where, okay, we know what Jupiter looks like, and we know what the rings actually look like, and we know that the rings are clouds. What does that look like in person? And the richness of the color and the density of it. As I referenced that one, I think it was there was at least a couple of times where Gerhard had, took a lot of photographs of things that attracted his attention, and he had the one photograph of that he took of the sky where it was layered. The clouds were layered in such a way that I said to him, it looks like Jupiter sneaking up on you. Like we just weren't paying attention, and suddenly Jupiter is right here at planet Earth, and this is what the sky looked like over Gerhard's house at the time. And I guess that one really worked because he went, right, I know what Jupiter looks like, and I know what the photo Dasim is talking about looked like, and I remember why I took the photo in my backyard. Now I just have to draw in color in a couple of days. 199, the Pluto cover with Cerebus, little tiny Cerebus with his eye patch looking up at us. And another one of those, just explaining it to Gerhard that, okay, it's a layer of ice, and it's a red color, and it's hovering just over the planet, assuming that what it's composed of is whatever the atmosphere is. It's very, very thin, but it's whatever elements it's got in it. When the ice forms on Pluto, it's 2 or 3 inches off of the planet, so it's like walking around on. How would you describe that? Very, very thin layer of glass, or very, very thin layer of ice where you're stepping through it, and there's actually a gap between the ice and the surface. And again, just as far as I'm concerned, knocked that one completely out of the park. They're still looking for it outside the stadium. In terms of, I designed this cover, this is what I pictured it looking like. How about that? It actually came out exactly the way that I pictured it. If you look at 156 and 157 side by side, Mind Game 5 and Mind Game 6, those I was very happy with. And I contributed to it because I think I got the Cerebus in the facets of the gem accurate enough so that when Gerhard looked at it and went, okay, all I'm really doing is making this red. He definitely didn't encroach on what I was doing, and again knocked his part out of the park, and I knocked my part out of the park. And yeah, 156. I would go. I really like somebody to know. If you're going to say, show me a Cerebus cover that you're happy with, that's the choice that I would take. I was so happy with it that I designed it into 157, and I thought that was a very successful cover. All I had to do was garden variety flying Cerebus, and then do a microcosmic version of the 156 cover and the lettering, and not the easiest thing in the world to pull off when you're doing something that tiny. You spend most of your time testing the pen nib to make sure, yes, this is microscopically fine. A flash forward to Strange Death of Alex Raymond, and that one I thought worked really, really well. And personal for me as well, I would say 283 and 284. Of all the movie poster covers, I thought these made really good Cerebus covers, really good chasing YHWH covers in terms of subject matter, and really good movie posters.
Okay.
So there you go. There you go. I appreciate your questions all the time, Mike, and that's why instead of just going with a top three, I stretched that into 6 of them. Gerhard, geez, Shirley, you better start proofreading these things. Did he really spell Gerhard with a T?
I think his whatever he typed it on probably auto-corrected it, and he didn't catch it.
Oh, that's probably it as well. Yes. Actually, we're lucky in that case that 6 of the letters were right. We'll give the spell check a mulligan on the T. Travis asks, I wonder if Dave Sim would think this exchange funny. Lincoln Michelle at the Lincoln. I hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. Lincoln Michelle, Lincoln Michael. 1, Harpo cannot speak. 2, Groucho's mustache is real. 3, Chico is a chicken chaser. 4, Zeppo will one day return. And Anders Veldberg replying to at Poor Fair Livid. Anyway, what are the beliefs one has to hold in order to be a Marxist? Yuck, yuck, yuck. It took me a couple of times reading that. Grandpa doesn't really do the email printout that everyone else is familiar with. I think that's hilarious, and I appreciate you sending that to me. Harpo cannot speak. Groucho's mustache is real. Chico is a chicken chaser, and Zeppo will one day return. That's good. It was. It's a question, but it's mostly just a yuck. Go ahead.
I almost included the cover to the Firesign Theater's second album, How Can You Be in Two Places at Once When You're Not Anywhere at All? It's the 4 members and their girlfriends, I believe, all dressed up fancy on a balcony, and behind them is a giant poster that says, All Hail Marx and Lenin, with a picture of Groucho and a picture of John Lennon.
That would do it for me as well. Greg Schatz corrects us from last month. Dave must have forgotten that he had read a review of Mary Wept Over the Feet of Jesus in the National Post back in 2016 and had written about it in a comment on this very blog, which later became this post. Yeah, I had completely forgotten this. I think I will read it aloud. I got a prayer time coming up at 7:00, but for the sake of all of the time and energy that Chester put into the book, the very least we can do 8 years later is do a major revisit on it. There was a full-page article / review of Chester's new book, Mary Wept Over the Feet of Jesus, in the National Post that I was going to make reference to at some point at the end of the first column, of which David Berry announced that Chester is the only person to do religious commentary in a comic book. But then I just thought, why bother? I already know how the discussion is going to go on Amok, Chester Brown Good, Dave Sim Evil, as opposed to the tenor of the article. Chester Brown Good, Dave Sim not existent. I have to interrupt at this point and go, that seems like all the way back to my childhood relative to how quickly newspapers are getting thinner and thinner and thinner. The National Post occasionally runs a review of a book in the newspaper, but very, very rarely. And usually it takes up all of the arts and life section now. At this time, there was at least, I would say, 5 or 6 pages in the arts and life section of the National Post devoted to book reviews. Yes, I do think that demonic possession exists and that it's the same as it's been since biblical times. We've just decided to call it by other names. It's particularly noticeable for someone like myself who prays 5 times a day, reads scripture aloud, and fasts most days, and 24 hours on Sunday. For me, that's just basic self-protection. It's pretty apparent what a complete lack of self-protection looks like. I definitely don't look at people who don't protect themselves and go, wow, they're so carefree and happy. I must be seriously deluded, unquote. This was more of a sore point at the time, so I'm gonna add that and then get back to reading here. There comes a point where you just accept that you're not getting a fair hearing, and that you won't get a fair hearing in a world where a major cartooning presence like Chester Brown is basically saying that Jesus agrees with him that prostitution is a good thing. Canada has certainly opted for Chester Brown's view of prostitution that isn't considered misogynistic or anything pejorative. I think 2 things worth pointing out. One, Chester, according to Joe Matt, mischaracterized Joe's disapproval of Chester's whoremongering as, quote, Joe is too cheap to pay for a prostitute, unquote. That may be true, but in all of the conversations that Joe and Chester and I had, Joe's objections were always on moral grounds. At least that's what he was saying. Chester is conjecturing about a different awareness from Joe's portrayal of his views. Chester did the same thing with me, mischaracterizing my disapproval as being, quote, Dave doesn't believe that women should have jobs, unquote. I did. And yeah, I think I would definitely lead on this one as much as I meant this back in 2016. I definitely mean it now. I definitely don't believe that 86% of women working outside the home is a sensible or sustainable percentage. But like Joe Matt, I just think the prostitution is morally wrong. And that's certainly what I always said to Chester. You can't believe that prostitution is harmless or even worse, beneficial. He definitely did. I would clip and mail articles to him about prostitution when they appeared in the National Post, pro and con, because I wanted to help him with his research. What he did with it was up to him. And I try to hold those kinds of views where it's like, if this is something that I vehemently disagree with, but I think it's something that some other creator is looking for to assist them, then I think I'm morally obligated to provide that information to them and not say, well, I disagree with this, so I'm not going to enable this kind of thinking. And I would also point out that I think that a world where there's a more sensible percentage of women who are wives and mothers and homemakers, and a sensible percentage of women who are out in the workforce is way, way, way out of whack. But that's something that women have to decide. I would never say, yes, I need to be made dictator, or me and people who think like me need to be made dictator, and we're going to tell women what the balance is going to be. It's no, I think it's a matter of we're going further and further along towards 100% of women out in the workforce and no wife, mother, homemakers. I think long before we get to that, we're going to hit God's guardrail, and something will need to be done. But definitely, I want to emphasize that I'm not saying I or other men are going to decide what the balance is going to be. It will be women who decide what that balance is going to be, and how you decide which women are in one camp and which women are in the other camp. Because immigration is just hitting a wall. We have to get back to getting Canada's birth rate above what it is now. I was just reading the other day, like 1.2 or something like that, where replacement is 2.1. The two thing is that Chester is definitely one of the most, if not the most unique whoremongers on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. I infer from the reviews and commentaries on paying for it that people sent to me that Chester is continuing in his relationship, or quotation mark relationship, unquote, or capital R relationship with his favorite prostitute, and that they have now become virtually an old, settled, married couple. I know at the time that Chester and I were hanging out that she would bake him cookies for Christmas, so it isn't a completely one-sided thing. Personally, I wouldn't want to be wanting to defend that on Judgment Day, but I'll be very interested to see how that does, quote, shake out, unquote, on Judgment Day. And I can certainly admire Chester for his advocacy, as I understand it, that if more men treated prostitutes the way they do a girlfriend or a wife that they cherish, as Chester definitely cherished and cherishes his favorite prostitute, the world in general and the world of prostitution specifically would probably be improved or be made less unhappy, not necessarily the same thing. I don't agree, and as far as I know, Joe Matt doesn't agree, but there you go. The only thing that I would add to that is happening now, definitely the Supreme Court of Canada has established that prostitution is just a profession, that prostitutes are sex care workers, and consequently are entitled to the same protections that any kind of worker or laborer is entitled to, and consequently all legislation has to take shape around that. What has changed since that time is the people who are very aware of and very knowledgeable about human trafficking, that not most prostitutes, but a good number of prostitutes are trafficked human beings, which means now you're talking about the slave trade. They can appear to be a strong, independent woman with very distinct ideas about prostitution and how that applies in their life. Online, if you're clicking on their profile or visiting them at OnlyFans or one of those websites, but there is a sizable environment where no, they're portraying themselves that way. But that's not who they actually are. They're trafficked human beings, and you are basically taking advantage of someone who is in a slave relationship to another person who treats them abusively, and all along the point from where they were born to where they were trafficked as a human being, there's a whole supply chain where grisly, nightmarish things happen to these women. And to try and say, oh, well, that's not my responsibility. This was just, an OnlyFans woman who was also turning tricks, and I set up a date with her. My hands are clean on this. No, if you look at these profiles, and you look at what these women have actually gone through before somebody got to the point of going, oh, this person needs rescuing, and they did get rescued, and the person who trafficked them was arrested and charged and sentenced. That's even more over in the direction of, I just can't endorse this. I can accept that Chester says, no, that's a side issue or a minor concern. I don't think it is.
Well, it's the old, I remember reading Groucho Marx's biography, and he talked about, he frequented whorehouses back when he was younger, and he was an advocate of, we need to legalize it because it's better for the girls, it's better for the Johns. But at the same time, it's like, Groucho, you had a wife at home.
You had what?
He had a wife at home.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And it's like, he was already, way down on the slippery slope, where it's like I say, when I'm trying to have an intelligent discussion about these things, it's like, thou shalt not commit adultery is one of the 10 Commandments. The further away you get from treating it as a 10 Commandment, as for the same reason that you don't murder people, you don't cheat on your wife. The further away you get from that, it's like all of these other things are just implications of what's already a disastrous implication. Yeah, good point on Groucho and talking about the whorehouses and paying black housekeepers in hotels to have sex because you could have them for whatever it was, because they were just a step above, a small step above absolute slaves. It's I think we have to make lots of progress on all aspects of this. Chester looks at it as it just needs some tweaking, and obviously Groucho thought, no, it's this is fine behavior. We just have to make it safer all the way around. Daniel F. checks in with an easy one. No, really, Dave, it's an easy one. It ain't going to be an easy one, is it? Well, it's define easy. Hello, Dave. The early printings of the first couple of Cerebus phone books don't have any text printed on the spine. Later printings have the volume number and volume name printed. What was the reason for that? Was it cheaper to print without text? Thanks, Daniel F. And question for Matt, how was your vacation? Is that one of those, thanks to Hurricane Helene? Apart from that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
We booked this trip knowing that there's a possibility of hurricanes. And I'm going, we booked it like a year ago, and I'm going, there's going to be the biggest hurricane that's ever hit land just because I'm going down there. There's a certain amount of standing on the beach going, come at me. And when the camera spins 180, there's this wall of water below a wall of cloud. And it was nice and sunny the entire time wherever we were. Everything was nice. And until we got back to Florida, and we were on the cruise ship, and cruise ships know what's going on. Like, hey, there's a hurricane over there, just don't go over there.
Right.
So we had our last day on the boat was at sea. So basically, they have to go from the Bahamas to Florida, which isn't that long of a trip. But they go slow and they go out into the Atlantic so that it's you're spending a day out on the boat. And we got into port, and the hurricane had hit overnight on the other side of the state. So we woke up, looked out, and it's wet, but power was on. It didn't look like there was a lot of damage because it was the east side of Florida, and the west side's what got hit. So it's one of those. Would I do this again? Probably. Is it going to go as smoothly? Probably not.
You're probably asking for trouble, at least at some level of metaphysics there, but you're also, you don't want to be a complete paranoid. You got to find a Goldilocks spot on that spectrum.
The only time that we were quote unquote affected by the hurricane was at the airport waiting for our flight to come home. We were flying into Chicago from Florida. The plane that we were going to fly on was coming to Florida from Baltimore, and between Baltimore and us was the remnants of the hurricane.
Ah.
And Paula's looking at her app going, well, they're delaying the flight, but I don't understand why. I'm like, because there's a hurricane between us. That's why.
Yes.
It's not over water. It's not technically a hurricane, but it's this massive storm system that you don't want to fly through.
And we definitely want to say, this is you and Paul and the kids definitely had a tangential experience, and we want to make sure that everybody understands this was a serious, serious hurricane, particularly in North Carolina. And it's one of those things where it's a one-day story until you find out North Carolina is still trying to get basic glued back together accomplished. So all of our best wishes and prayers to the people of North Carolina, South Carolina, parts of Georgia, where this wasn't a minor or tangential thing. It was this is the wrath of God. So speaking of the wrath of God, I have a prayer time coming up in a couple of minutes. So I will get back to the question on putting the names on the spines of the trade paperbacks when we pick this up on the other side.
Okay. I will be
Talk
there.
to you then. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello again, Dave.
Hello again, Matt. Okay, picking up where we left off with the Daniel F. asking about the early printings of the first couple of Cerebus phone books. Don't have any text printed on the spine. What was the reason for that? That happened when I got a prototype of High Society done by Printy Print and Litho, and it didn't have anything printed on it. It was just, okay, let's figure out what the cover stock is going to be and what the paper interiors are going to be and what that looks like. And it's like, okay, now I know what that looks like. What's the cover going to be? And I knew that like the picture I had in my mind was pretty much exactly the way the High Society cover looks. Not nearly that elaborate. Gerhard really went to town on it, but I did say, just make it the most palatial hotel you can possibly imagine. Just gaudiness stacked on top of gaudiness, stacked on top of gaudiness, and in a fan shape where it rises to a peak in the middle and then sort of scales down in perspective on the front and back covers. And that was the extent of my instruction on that, which then presented the problem once the cover was done and we were going ahead with packaging the book. Let's take all of these negatives from 26 to 50 and put them into one giant book, one 500-page book. As the logistics were getting solved, then it was, okay, it's a book. You're supposed to put the name of the book on the spine. And that became a conflict for me between, well, okay, that's what you do. That's standard operating procedure with any book. And then it was, but it's this amazing Gerhard drawing of the Regency Hotel. Why would I cover up the central portion of that illustration with the title of the book? If I have to prioritize, it would be, yes, it's far more important that people get to see Gerhard's artwork exactly as Gerhard executed it. And yes, there's no doubt that human civilization agrees all books have to have their names on the spine. And it's like, well, speaking as a comic book artist and speaking as a comic book artist employing the best background artist in the business, I think the one supersedes the other. So consequently, and the other fact was, okay, I'm not going to be selling this through the distributors or to the stores because the orders just aren't large enough for what I think this can sell. And why should I not sell this directly to the fans? And if I'm selling it directly to the fans, it doesn't have the impetus to say, okay, you've got to have the name on the spine. If you're selling to a bookstore, then you have to have the name on the spine because that's how they're going to sell it to their customers. if I'm selling it to my customers based on the fact that it's the collected High Society Cerebus 26 to 50, I don't think they would be prioritizing having the name on the spine. And I'm the absolute dictator here. If I decide this is the preferable way to do the High Society cover, this is the preferable way. Then by the time that we were going to sell to the stores, then it became a question of, well, okay, you've done this book, and you've conceded that a book should have the name of the book on the front and the name of the creators underneath it as a credit, and that's the limit of what you think need to be on a book. You can do that for a little while, and now when you're going to be selling these same books into comic book stores where full-face display is going to be a lot more unlikely than spine-out display, then, okay, that shifts the balance of the decision-making. So that's where the decision-making went from there. Now we're going to put the names on the spines, and now we've got to decide, okay, what typeface are we going to use? Because by that time it was like the Cerebus Trade paperback and High Society and Church and State 1. What's going to work with all three covers? And it's like, well, nothing. Actually, you would have a different spine on Church and State 1 and on Cerebus than you would on High Society. So there was a compromise there, because High Society, the lettering still gets lost. It's like it's impossible to do any kind of lettering that is going to stand out readably on a cover that has as detailed an illustration as Gerhardt did. So didn't really work on High Society. It did work on Cerebus. Didn't really work on Church and State 1, but the decision has to be made. And then it was a matter of going, okay, this is going to be a printy print litho thing. I'm not going to hand letter titles onto the books, because I certainly wasn't going to do that with High Society. So this will be something that just gets added to the book at the pre-press stage at printy print litho. And as much as possible, Kim, you have to set it up so that when these books are put on a bookshelf, that the lettering is the same size, so that it looks like a series of books. This is the Cerebus graphic novel broken down into individual graphic novels, and that's what you're going to be trying to do. I think there was some tweaking that went on between printings, where it's like, no, Church and State is the name on the spine is a little bit too big, or High Society is a little bit too small. We have to find whatever we can do in terms of a Goldilocks spot and get them all to match up, so that at the end of the day, when all of this is done, we will have 16 volumes with the names on the spines looking like they fit in one series of books. That's as thorough an explanation as I can do on that one.
Now, it was the first 5 that were, quote, spineless for the first couple printings, right? I thought it went up to Jocka's story.
Yeah. I mean, that was again, there was different decision making going into it of what's more important, an unobstructed illustration, to whatever extent that is possible, against having the name on the spine. And once I make a decision, I tend to try to stick with the decision, and that was the decision that I had made. And I think it was, I'm not sure when it was that we started offering the books to the direct market, but that factored into decision making. The decision might have been made before that, where it's just, no, these are very thick books, and you really need to have the name on the spine, whatever friction that causes inside of you as an artist, and saying, if you can avoid covering up art with text, you want to avoid covering up art with text. You only want to have text where you absolutely have to have text. And stuck with that until it was, it is going to be problematic for Cerebus fans if I keep doing this, and they do end up with, I don't think I even had the decision made that there was going to be 16 volumes, but whatever that ends up being, all 6,000 pages fit in this number of books. It's going to be, as soon as you pull one of them off the shelf to check, let's say, Jaka's story, and you go, well, I know that illustration is part of the Jaka story cover. There's going to be other covers where you go, I can't tell from that cover which one that is, and I don't want to be having to pull, 3 or 4 books off of the shelf to go, oh, okay, this is what I was looking for. I was looking for Minds. Why can't it just say Minds on the spine?
I remember I didn't know about the spineless covers, and then we were in Salt Lake City at the eBooks the Server show, and Mimi Cruz invited us back to her house, and I was looking at the bookshelves. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And they were looking at me like, everybody, including you and Garrett, were looking at me like I had, ant head, because they're like, how do you not know about this? Like, I'm a later fan.
That's right. I came in late on the show. Yeah, it was. When did you come in? You came in at what year?
90s. I started buying the book monthly in 97.
Okay. So your trade paperback experience was after that. And yes, by that time it was SOP that all of the books had names on the spine. This sounds like a job for Nate Oberstein, our trade paperback collector, who's got all of the printings. Where was the decision made, and what year? Because he would have them. I'm pretty sure he's got them filed away in order, and would be able to say, okay, this was the year that the decision was made, and this was the first trade paperback that came out that had the name on the spine, and then all of these others followed like dominoes.
I actually have pictures of his collection, now that I think about it.
Yeah, it might have to correlate between looking at the collection and looking at the indicia on the inside, but it'll be interesting. But that's as far as we can go on the secret origin of the names on the spine, Daniel F. We'll get back to you on the rest of it. Kevin Greenlee asked, perhaps this is the wrong email to send this to. If so, I apologize. I wondered if Dave Sim does commission. In particular, I would be interested in a photorealism drawing of my wife, or perhaps the two of us together. There is also the possibility we might want to use that drawing to promote our work. We have a podcast, and we might have other projects down the road. Again, I apologize if this was the wrong address to send this to. No, this is good, Kevin. This is the perfect address because I can answer your question for you and then answer the question for everybody else at the same time. I think in this case, because it's a first time thing, I would suggest that if you can do the photograph, this is the photograph that you want the photorealistic drawing done from, and the first decision would be, well, if it's just your wife, then it's only one character, so it's one price. If it's both you and your wife, then it's two characters, and consequently, whatever the price is that you're thinking of, it'll be twice that. I would say, because we're at the outset of discussing this, that you would have to say, this is how much I'm looking to spend, and from that point, I would probably say any other uses that you have for the drawing. I have no problem with that. It would be, well, how many times are you using it, and are you using it on something that you're making revenue on? If you're making revenue on your podcast, and how much revenue are you making? It would be a small fraction of whatever your revenue is, but let's say, 4% for every time that you use the drawing as part of your podcast. So it's just, Aardvark Anaheim is still getting compensated for this drawing, and you tell me what you're comfortable spending, and I will use this as a whaling on it photorealism experiment. In my case, where it'll be, well, okay, if you're offering 500, let's say, I will take X amount of time doing it, and I'll try and be spontaneous, but mostly I'll try and be as meticulous as I can. If you're going less than 500, let's say, you wanted it for $50, then it would be, okay, how fast can I do this? Because I don't usually do that with my photorealism stuff. But what the heck? This is as good a way as any to find out how that would work. If you want to go more than that, then it would be, well, okay, it's like a taxi meter. The more money you spend, the more time that I'm going to take on it. One of the things is it'll probably be a better picture if you're wearing checked, plaid, or striped clothing, because that helps to establish the contours of the picture for me when I'm doing photorealism, and it makes for a more exact drawing. It makes for something where you go, wow, that is super realistic. If it's just a plain color, flat color outfit, and I'm having to do it with cross hatching, it's not going to have that jump to it. First impression, looking at it, going, wow, that is a super realistic drawing. So let's keep doing this publicly. You can email Matt, and Matt will fax it to me, and at some point I'll get you to email the photograph. If you want to do a few options of photographs, that works for me too. I could say this one would probably be easier to do than this one. Change the lighting a little bit so that particularly if you have sort of a three-quarter view, the light source that you're using is square on, but maybe with secondary lighting just off to the side, that helps to establish the contour of the faces and the shape of the chin, the shape and position of the nose, which is what tells you this is Kevin Greenlee and not just somebody who looks like him. So there you go. I'll be interested in putting this on my work schedule, and we'll see how long it takes us to arrive at some answers here.
I was going to say, it's the old adage of $40 will get you $40 worth.
Right. I will try to the best of my ability to make it as good as I can make it. Okay, and then Jay Jones. If I might ask two questions, one a theological one and the other one just one of curiosity. No pressure to answer either one, though. No problem. Dave, I can honestly say that from examining your art, writing, and listening to multiple hours of you speak, that you are an intelligent person, a thinker. Well, thank you. It's evident in how methodical and thoughtful you are in all your work. Yet there's something I can't reconcile. You say that you adhere to Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. I'm going to correct that and go, those always have to be in the correct order, which is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It's prejudicial to put Christianity first. But the core beliefs are contradictory, namely whether God is knowable and how he is known. One can't be a credible follower of Jesus and yet simultaneously claim to follow Muhammad or Moshe, especially the law of Moshe, which is impossible to keep anyway due to the absence of a physical temple and the demolishing of the priesthood and their genealogies around 70 AD. Okay, let me correct a couple of things there. I don't think you can follow Jesus without understanding that Jesus was a follower of Moshe and of the law of Moshe. He refers to the law of Moshe specifically and in many different ways, sometimes saying this doesn't apply anymore or this never did apply, but also in saying this is why you need to do this because it's in the law and the prophets, and consequently it's part of the law of Moshe. Muhammad, again, I draw a distinction between John's Gospel and the Synoptic Gospels, and I think Muhammad is the Paraclete, which the Johannine Jesus refers to multiple times, starting in chapter 14 of John's Gospel. It definitely fits all the facts of Muhammad. So consequently, that's a matter of interpretation where, whatever it is that you as a Christian and whatever your Christian sect or following believes about the Paraclete, that's all still theoretical. There's no 100% Christian consensus on who the Paraclete is that the Johannine Jesus is referring to. A lot of people would say that it's St. Paul. I could certainly see a persuasive argument for that, but personally I don't think that is the case. I think that Moshe, followed by Jesus, followed by Muhammad, is the primary touchstones of the three faiths, and all to me are beginning, middle, and end. This is God's revelation of Himself through the hand of these prophets. The core teaching of Christianity are that Jesus is the Son of God. John 1 expressed visible image of the invisible God. Colossians 1:15. Yet Islam claims he was not. the Quran 4:171. The entire historicity of Christianity rests on that claim. That's the reason Jesus was crucified, John 5:18. So my side note with the light challenge would be, you can't serve three masters. Choose one. Who will it be? I encourage him and all others to follow that most compelling, inspiring person in history, the Son of God, Jesus. There's some technical problems there too. It's an opinion that Jesus was a person. There are definitely Christian sects who believed from the beginning that Jesus was spirit. He did not have no physical presence in the world. He wasn't a person. He was God from the beginning, incarnated in human form. So I would also take issue with the three masters. To me, the only master is God. I submit to the will of God, and I try to, as much as possible, follow whatever it is inside of me, my indwelling spirit, in whatever direction I think it is that God is leading me. But I don't consider Jesus my master, and I don't consider Moshe my master, and I don't consider Muhammad my master. God is the master. Those three to me, and the other prophets and messengers, are conduits for God's revelation of himself to the world. But all of that is open to interpretation, as we have seen. I mean, I can read the interlinear version of Colossians 1:15 and probably take issue with what it is that your translation is saying. That's why I think one of the things that Islam brought to the table was the idea of submission to the will of God. Not God will tell you exactly how everything works and what opinions are accurate and what opinions are lies. That's why you submit yourself to the will of God. You will find the opinion that you're most persuaded by as a monotheist, as I did in all three revelations, and as most other people do in, like you say, pick one. But that presupposes that Muhammad is an apex individual that I don't think Muhammad presented himself as being, that Jesus was an apex person, but I don't think he presented himself as being, although there are verses that definitely have that compelled inference. And I don't think Moshe considered himself an apex person. They all thought of themselves as servants of God. God speaks to them, and their response was, "Here am I." And that's all they're going to contribute on their side. They're there to listen as a servant listens to his Lord. So that's as distilled as I can get on that one. If you want to follow up, I always maintain personal perspective. The amount of time that you spent typing out the question and the amount of time that I spent explaining where I disagree with you and why my observance is different, that to me is monotheistic quibbling, and our time is better spent reading Scripture aloud and contemplating Scripture while we're reading it aloud, because you and I both take it as a given that Scripture is truth. So consequently, it's far better to be enunciating truth and participating in it, I think, than it is to be quibbling about, this is how I interpret this verse, and you going, I don't interpret it that way, I interpret it this way. We take it as a given. We're never going to agree on religious observance, but I hope we can agree that reading Scripture aloud is efficacious and non-confrontational and not basically a waste of time. It's always going to be beneficent, where I find very little quibbling, monotheistic or otherwise, beneficent. I find it mostly just, we can do this if you want, but there are better uses of both of our time. Number two, if it wouldn't open any old wounds or cause any other unintended discomfort, could I ask what your current relationship with Jim Valentino is? Hadn't spoken years. Definitely. The last time I would have spoken to Jim Valentino would have been when Image was starting, I think. I'm pretty sure, he was, when all the Image guys were doing WonderCon and I was at WonderCon, I definitely spoke to all of them, not at any length, because, they were the Image guys. They had bigger fish to fry at the time. But definitely not with any acrimony. Still friendly. Jim sent me a couple of his books personalized, which was very, very nice of him to do. And I've got them in the Off-White House library, and always privileged in my own mind because it was signed by the creator. He was very sick. He had a rough early 2024. He was very sick for a time. Sorry to hear that. And I think that's one of those information technology things where that word doesn't spread quite as quickly as we think it does. And particularly for those of us that don't participate online, I never find out things like that unless Matt Dow tells me. I don't find out about it. I hope Jim's coming around, and I hope that he has as many years ahead of him. As I read the history of his normal man character, had your Aardvark Vanaheim not existed, his career might not have taken off. This is made evident even in the latest 40th anniversary omnibus that came out, which, interestingly, a picture of William Mesterlodes posted just today on the Cerebus blog shows him reading. He drew one episode of Normal Man. I think Jim would still have had a career, particularly in the fact that at the time that he submitted Normal Man to Aardvark Vanaheim, Don Simpson had also submitted Megaton Man. And Cat Ironwood was the one who was doing Eclipse at the time with Dean Mulaney. Saw Normal Man. Jim, I think, pitched it to her, and she basically said, this will be a good flagship title for Aardvark Vanaheim, where they can do a color title and make more money than you can make on black and white comics, which was definitely the way she was looking at things at the time, and said to Denny, if Aardvark Vanaheim doesn't publish this, then I'll publish it. And Denny then, sort of presented that to me as an ultimatum. we can publish this and we can make a lot of money because it's a color comic and it's very accessible and it's probably going to be a big hit. But if we don't publish it, then Cat Ironwood's going to publish it and they'll make all the money. And it's like, okay, as it panned out, the large number of sales that we got on Normal Man, because it was a color title, were offset by how much it cost to have Murphy Anderson doing the color and printing a color book, which is one of those, you don't know that until you know that. So, open question. There's no control group on that. How would Jim Valentino's career have done if Eclipse had published Normal Man? And how would Don Simpson's career have gone if Aardvark Anaheim had published Megaton Man, as I wanted to, with a color cover and black and white interiors, instead of Kitchen Sink Press, who ended up publishing Megaton Man? All of those things are open questions. Not trying to stir up controversy, just sincerely interested. Thank you for your kindness towards me, and with a heartfelt handshake, J-Tunes. And same thing on my side. It's I really have no acrimony against anyone in the comic book field. It's long term, and definitely long term is a central consideration with me. I wish everybody well on Judgment Day, because I do think Judgment Day is going to happen, and there could be a lot of misinterpretation going on, and any number of devout atheists could possibly be going to a great reward. That's up to God, and that's not something I would know or have any way of figuring out. So that extends to William Messner Loebs, Don Simpson, Jim Valentino, anybody that I knew and had any experience with. It's impossible to keep up with everybody, and unfortunately it's a situation where usually the next time that I'm going to have a front and center experience is when I find out that the person died, because we're all leading finite lives. Larry King. Wait, Larry King. No, it's got to be another Larry King. Asks, with manga dominating Western comic sales, what do you think of the format? Thank you for your time, Larry King. Dave says, buy a Kimbo, buy an Arudibus, buy whatever the next one ends up being. And Matt says, buy two. Need stocking stuffers? Nothing says Christmas like Aardvark Mangaheim comic books. Of course, other things do, but not as stylishly. Good point. Good point, Matt. I got to tell you, you ordered the 10 sheets of the leader tone for me, where we were trying to figure out, okay, I really want to have mechanical tone that I can actually put on the artwork. Does Lectratone still exist? And no, Lectratone doesn't exist. But that led Rolly to Deleter, and then led you to Deleter. And I got to tell you, when I finally got the 10 pages of tone, I also got this reasonably thick, like a good between a quarter inch and a half inch Deleter catalog. And it's absolutely amazing what they have done. This is exactly like the Lectraset catalog, but now we have arrived at a point where people who want these tones and textures, they're all comic book people, and most of them are manga people. So this is going to take a little bit of doing on your side, Matt, but I'm going to tell you that I'm flipping through here, and the number of different tones that they've got. They've got bar tone, graduated tone that goes from light to dark very, very quickly. So it's in the space of an inch or so, and others where it takes up the whole sheet of tone, which is exactly what they had with Lectratone that we were all using. But they've also got deleter tone, and I can give you the codes of some of the ones where I'm going. I would really like to do a manga Cerebus or manga something where I'm just using the tones that they've got, which are very definitely manga tones, and you would just get it as a sheet of tone and paste it down, and there you go. You've got this amazing background. There's an SE 1027, which is just starburst that you could either use as starburst or use as starburst word balloons against a black background. What in the catalog here, the ones that are in that category where it's like, okay, this is really, really just giving you manga drawing that you don't have to draw. You can just stick it down. Most of the time, it has a star next to it, a star next to SE 826, SE 819, which is again starburst, but looks more like Jack Kirby flash lines that have been modified so that they have the very distinctive manga look to them. This is just amazing. I can't recommend this enough. And if the Deleter company gets any orders from this page here, SE 573, 585, 588, 627, 619. It's you could just draw a Cerebus, and then it's got this amazing cosmic background. And for the cosmic background, all you had to do was just cut the damn thing out and stick it down as self-adhesive film. And the tone that you ended up getting me was the SE. I'm looking for it here. SE 102, no, SE 103, which was a 30% tone, but it's a very, very fine screen. It goes all the way down to SE3, which is pretty much a direct analog of the LT3 that I was using. So it's, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have gotten 10 sheets of the SE 103. I would have gotten, one SE3, one SE13, one SE23, but live and learn. So in terms of format, manga is taking over the world, and the comics world justifiably, because it's definitely far more attuned to what Japanese people and Japanese aficionados, Japanophiles, are inclined towards, and learning how to do it better than North American comics have learned how to do North American comics. Kristen checks in. Senior Dave E. L. Manley. Greetings from the California fall season, where it's currently only 104 degrees. Nothing says autumn holiday fun like a fresh sunburn. Yeah, you folks have some trouble out there. So as you probably all know, last month the Dave Sim file copy Cerebus #1 CGC graded 9.2 sold on Heritage Auctions for a whopping 21,600. In my area, that would include almost 2,000 in taxes, 8.38% here in Solona County, 550 if you paid with a credit card, the 2.5% fee, a healthy shipping cost, plus additional heritage processing and handling fees. At the end of the day, realistically, that's a $24,000 plus book. If we're just trying to make ourselves feel better here, you can also say in Canadian funds, that would be about $32,000. Which leads to my question, is anyone else within the AMOC group excited and impressed by this? Because I definitely am. Whether this was your actual book and you just made a ton of money or not, no, it wasn't. This is fantastic justification for any hardcore Cerebus fan. This is legit respect. This proves Cerebus's and Dave Sim's relevance is still strongly exists today. P.S. You're welcome to whoever did actually own that copy. I definitely helped bid that book up for you. Kristen Hundredson. And Dave doing his best Johnny Carson says, I did not know that. And Matt doing his best Ed McMahon says,
Heyo!
There we go. Yeah, very good news. This is the first that I heard of it, and I definitely, Todd Hignight at Heritage Auctions has told me that in terms of rarity, Cerebus number 1 slab copies, they get fewer of those probably of any other valuable comic. I'll be interested to see in Overstreet next year when they do their market report on Bronze Age comics, which is what Cerebus qualifies as. It's a Bronze Age comic where that 21,600 is going to put Cerebus number 1 relative to Hulk 180, 181, and all of the other upgraded Bronze Age books. Steve asked, Gentlemen, when Swords of Cerebus Volume 1 was reprinted, it had a completely new cover. Why? Was a different printer used? Trying to flip over here. Was the original cover art no longer available? Some other just as arcane reason. I have my own suspicions having to do with print quality, knockout text on a 4-color job, run on a 1 or 2 color press, those sorts of things. Those were definitely considerations. You can take the pressman out of the press room, and honestly, I'm glad I'm out of there, but those printing tidbits still appeal to me. Thanks as ever for your time. I remain, as ever, ABQ Steve. And I got to tell you, Steve, that the biggest reason was the cover looked better than the printed version, but it still didn't look very good, and the logo didn't look very good. And I was very aware of that from the moment that the first printing of Swords of Cerebus Volume 1 came in, and went, okay, whatever I'm doing on the second printing, and it looks like there's going to be a second printing pretty soon, I'm going to do a completely different cover. It would take too much time to try and redo the cover that I did. I can't, in good conscience, run this cover. So that's also one of the reasons that if I do get to the point where just to pay bills, I have to sell part of the Cerebus archive. One of the things that I would sell is the wraparound Swords of Cerebus Volume 1 first printing cover, because I really just don't like it. And B, it would probably go for the most amount of money of any of the Swords of Cerebus covers. And our last question from the Home Office in Easton, Pennsylvania, Michael R. asks, Hi, Matt. I hope you enjoyed your vacation Here's my question for Dave. Hi, Dave. Where are we with the 1982 U.S. tour book with Waverly Press? Michael R. And Matt says, I got all these pictures. I think I might have scans of some notes, a few sketches, a bunch of scans of articles from 82, 83, maybe a smelly vintage sweater vest. Oh, wait, you mean Dave and the Waverly Press. We, not we. Sorry. That's good, Matt. You caught on to that right away. And I have a letter dated August 1st, 2024, from Dagan James. The 1982 tour book is mostly finished, but I need to find a large enough window of time to wrap it up. I just glanced it over as I'm writing this. There are a lot of images to caption and edit and a few design puzzles to solve. It's currently 192 pages, though I may tighten it up to 176. It is the same size as the other Cerebus hardcover books I put out, so they'll match perfectly on the shelf. And there it sits at the moment. At some point, Dagan will get Studio Comics Press to print out a copy of what he's got so far. But it sounds like he's got miles to go before he sleeps, miles to go before he sleeps. And I got a prayer time coming up at 8:19, so we're into hurry up offense at this point. Josh Even of the Savage TMNT and Cerebus Collection even is making these. And I'm going to make that a carryover into the next Please Hold for Dave Sims, because I think something might be happening with a Cerebus action figure, and I don't want to go any farther than saying that something might be happening, and the next month might bring some news that I can bring to the table. But I have to say it looks really good. I think it needs to be a little chunkier. It's just it's like Cerebus, who's been on a very, very effective Atkins diet, and whatever else you can say about Cerebus, he's not in that category. But very nice piece of work, and we will revisit this and try and get some details on ordering these from Joss Even as we move along towards the November Please Hold for Dave Sims. Okay, got to run for my prayer time. Say hello to Paula and Bullwinkle and Janice Pearl and Buddy and Bonnie and Clyde. I'm inclined to say iguanas, but not iguanas.
Cats.
Cats. There you go. Okay, concluding on cats. Have a good night, Matt.
You too, Dave.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.